us in our invocation and pledge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you'll bow with me. Heavenly Father, as we come to you today, we just come to you just humbled. Lord, we know the great importance on providing an education for our students and how that transforms kids into brighter futures. Lord, we lift up our teachers and our staff and our district staff and principals and bus drivers and maintenance and custodian and food service, everyone in between, so that is frantically getting ready for the best school year that they can possibly give our students. Lord, we thank you for that. We thank you for people that love on our kids. Lord, I pray for guidance and wisdom as we deliberate and as we make decisions that affect our students and our staff, and let them always be centered on you, Lord. Lord, we know that there's those that have suffered loss. We lift up the Matthews family from Yankeetown, and what Miss Diane meant to them and to our district. So we know there's others, so we lift them up, and we lift those that are dealing with sickness. We ask all these things in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Address the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. I'd like to welcome everybody to the board meeting this evening. It's nice to have some visitors in the audience. And just so everyone knows, our council is here. It's Mr. Quick in for Mr. Delaney, and he is on speakerphone, so he can hear us and we can hear him to interject. And I will go to the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Adoption of the agenda. Move right on to 6, and that will be Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Several years ago, Mr. Edison created the Impact Award, and we had someone that was recently nominated for the award. And this award is about going above and beyond the scope of their duties. And so I want to read to you what this said. It says, "This is going to sound very much like I want to wish and want to recognize someone for just helping me, and my reference in what he did for me. But he helps any and everyone he can, and has done this since he was an assistant principal at Bronson Middle High School. I do not believe he helped me because I'm a board member. I believe he helped me because I'm a parent with a child that needed help. I contacted Mr. Bennett on the afternoon of June 25th, 2024, because I was honestly at my wit's end. My son had been accepted to Santa Fe College to start in August, but before he can receive any scholarships or financial aid he is qualified for at Santa Fe College, they needed his copy of his transcripts. Having contacted the school previously, I had been told that they would be sent, and I have no reason to believe that they were not. Mr. Bennett, being very much on top of these technical things, I knew could get it squared away. After talking with him, he said I will get a copy to them that day and handle it on that day. On the 28th, my wife contacted admissions to check to see if they'd received it, to which they replied no. I emailed Mr. Bennett, update. Mr. Bennett contacted Santa Fe multiple times and on his own time hand-delivered my son's sealed transcripts to the admissions office. In doing so, he was able to uncover the issue, and I believe he's found a resolution for issues between Santa Fe and our school district when it comes to transcripts. Thanks to Morgan Bennett, my child will be able to enter school in the fall, and nothing is left outstanding for his financial aid review. This is an example of just one of the many times I've witnessed Mr. Bennett going above and beyond for the school system of Levy County and his students. His willingness to do what is needed when needed is amazing, and he deserves recognition. I will always appreciate the work he has done specifically and what he has done for my child. So with that, Morgan, would you come forward and receive this Impact Award? Really, Mr. Asbill probably so well.
No. This is all about Bennett, not about me. I just want you to know that I
really am glad that we were able to work out. Figure someone
I think y'all-
would do that for me.
I know, that's why. If I had thought it was legitimately just for me, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But I know this man, and he's fantastic, and he's a treasure for us, my opinion.
Morgan is, like many of our employees, but we're celebrating Morgan here. I want Morgan to never go anywhere and leave this district. Morgan is a wealth of knowledge and truly is one of our treasures in Levy County, and we appreciate you, Morgan.
When we leave here, I'm taking him to get school board of Levy County tattooed
Tattooed?
on his body.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm freaked out now. Isn't that in the hiring book? This is step one.
Welcome. I just want to say I welcomed everyone, but I jumped ahead, but we have new visitors, so welcome to the board meeting this evening. We'll move on to item 7, and that is Mrs. Lake.
Good evening.
Evening.
Very well deserved. I could not do my job if he did not do his job. So,
You and many, many others in this district, so,
Getting very busy.
yes.
We go to the next page. All right, so our budget timeline, we are here today for the proposed budget. This is the first trim date. We have to meet by July 24th. We have to propose a budget to the board and approve our trim ads. They have to be advertised by July 29th. They will advertise on July 29th through the Gainesville Sun this year. And then we'll have our tentative meeting to adopt tentative millage and budget on Thursday, August 1st. And then we'll adopt our final millage and budget on September 11th. The proposed budget and tentative budget are one and the same. So the next 2 meetings, we'll be talking about this budget in slightly different ways. I'll show you parts of it tonight and go a little deeper during the tentative budget. This is our certification of school taxable value. Here's where we wait for the July 19th statutory date where our RLE has to be given to us by Department of Education. This year it's 3.108. 1.5 for capital outlay, that is the same year from year, and discretionary operating is also the same, 0.748. This year's millage, we will have an increase in a local increase between the RLE and the discretionary of a little over $969,000, and then capital outlay will increase between last year and this year of a little over $486,000. We are only able to budget 96% of those proceeds. So we also, with the RLE comes the second calculation. There are very few changes in the second calculation. They mostly pertain to what that RLE does to our local, and then there's a very small change in our FTE. So that resulted in an increase of a little over 109,000. 92,000 of it coming from a local increase based because of that RLE, and it's a little over 17,000 coming from a change in some categoricals. I think it was like transportation, a couple of those changed very minor. So I wanted to look at our revenues between the last 3 fiscal years. So we're looking at fiscal year 21-22, 22-23, and 23-24, and we're looking at changes in revenue over that time, and comparing changes in revenue between fiscal year 22 and this past fiscal year specifically. And you can see we've had a 13% increase in revenues over that time, with 3.7 in state sources directly related to an increase in state funding, mostly due to the $15 an hour and TSIA. We had a pretty hefty jump in BSA, not last year. That was all still state sources. They just moved it from below the line to above the line, but prior to that. And local sources, we have 2.7 million increase, and that is attributed to our RLE, or property taxes. So looking at this year and crafting the revenue side of the budget, I'm going to compare what we received 23-24 and this current fiscal year that we're in, what we expect to receive. State sources are going to grow by about $289,000. that again is coming from an increase in the BSA, and the local sources grow about 630,000. That's mostly RLE. There's some other local sources built in there, for an increase of 3% or almost 1.5 million. Now, I do want to say the highlighted I adjusted for scholarships. So if you were to take my numbers here and look at my budget summary, you would say, oh, it's 54.5 million here, but I'm looking at closer to 59 million. Why is there a difference? I wanted to pull out the scholarships because the scholarships aren't our money, so there's no reason to even factor them in, but I must budget them. So I budget a revenue and I budget an expenditure. Well, I've adjusted for that. This is just a little graph to show 68% of our funding are state sources and 28% are local sources. All right, so let's look at the expense side. So I said, let's see, in 21-22 compared to 23-24, our revenues grew 13%. Our expenditures over that time grew 14%. And you can see 13% in salaries, 18% in benefits. So right there is a huge 31% of our growth is in salaries and benefits over that time. Purchase services is the next higher with a 20% growth there. Capital outlay, it's hard to, that varies. It just depends on what projects we have over time. It's not necessarily that huge of a growth. There just was probably a bigger project, ESSER, something that was contributing to that growth there.
So, Kim, what is our total percentage of salaries what's the total percentage of salaries?
77%.
77% in salaries. Thank you.
So last year, our expenditures alone grew 4%, but over that 3 fiscal year period, they grew 14%. And I believe our revenues only grew 3% last year. So now let's look at the budget. The proposed budget compared with the activity we've done this fiscal year we're coming out of, we're seeing a 3% growth in expenditures. Materials and supplies, that 50%, they're up higher because it's a textbook adoption year. So there's more money in there for textbooks. I've adjusted for roll forward, so again, I reduced some of these expenditure lines so that they didn't muddy the waters. But we have schoolhouse budget, for example. You have to budget their entire budget, which includes a fund balance, a roll forward. The schools don't usually erode that entire budget, so we know it's a little inflated, but you need to budget for it. So overall, we're looking at 3% increase in expenditures. So just looking at expenditure comparisons over the last 3 years, you can see the growth in salaries, and you can see the growth, especially in benefits, which I just showed you the percent, so it's no surprise. And then you see between this year and last year, we're kind of stabilizing with the purchase services, energy. You can kind of see where we're going, that gray and that yellow. Gray is last year, yellow, or 22, 23, and yellow is 23, 24. All right, so now if we look at the proposed budget by object, we see, this is where we see salaries and benefits combined are 77% of our overall budget. This would be the general fund that I'm referring to. Purchase services is next, so those contracted employees or contracted vendors we have, 13%. Materials and supplies at 4%, and so on. Other expenses include sub-cost, and I'll dig a little deeper into that when I bring the tentative budget before you, because I want to get those details correct, but we have seen escalating costs in the sub area. It's not reflected in the percent, but in total growth, it's pretty large.
So the salaries and benefits is a 77%, and then you have employee salaries at 57%?
Employee salaries don't include benefits.
Right.
So when I
So
added
when you broke
those
it,
two together, it's right
became
at
77%.
Yep. So this is capital projects. So we still are paying back for Chief Middle High School. This budget includes a $2.2 million payback for this year. And then I think it leaves us around 2.1 to pay in 25, 26 as our final payment. So you'll slowly start to see this budget decrease as those reserves go out to pay back for the building next year. Debt service, we have COPS debt service, we have $660,000 that we'll pay this year, and then we have a final payment of $655,000 next year, and debt service will be satisfied. We have racetrack, that we will be coming before you in July, and we'll be refunding that bond. Food service, we're estimating almost 5.3 in revenues and around 5.5 in budgeted expenditures. She has a fund balance. Her fund balance can only be equal, I can't remember, I don't want to misquote it, but she has a maximum that she can hold in the fund balance. Department of Ag requires her to spend those funds. So she does a good job each year of trying to budget those expenditures to reduce that fund balance. Federal programs, this is kind of a placeholder. I pull last year's revenues and expenditures as we finalize federal budgets, and then when I present the final budget, those will be our true federal budgets for the year. And self-insurance. This shows the revenues, expenditures. We will be impacting the fund balance. Looks like a little under $1 million that we might tap into the fund balance if the claims stay at around that almost 7 million. So these are the ads. I'll go through the ads that will need approval for tonight that are going to go into the Gainesville Sun. So this is the notice of proposed tax increase. So we're going to be advertising again for a tax increase. It seems like we've done that the last few years. Our proposed RLE again is 3.108, and that is lower than last year. Last year is 3.195, but it's higher than the rollback rate. So we have to advertise for a tax increase. So the rollback rate, most of you probably know, but I'll go ahead and go through that. That's the rate that would generate the same amount of property tax revenues as approved for the prior year. So when the tax base increases like this year, the rollback rate is less than the prior year's rate. So that just means that the tax value has increased, so we will receive more in local taxes when compared to last year, but the local tax rate did not increase. So that forces us to notice a proposed tax increase. That's a lot. Any questions? This is the budget summary. So this is all funds. So if you look to the far right highlighted number of 118, almost 119 million, keep in mind that is our total budget. That total budget includes multiple funds, general fund, special revenue, which is federal budgets and food service, debt service, capital projects, which is our 1.5 mil we talked about, and internal service, which is our self-insurance. So that's a total of all funds, but it also includes reserve funding. And this is the way the state has us project the budget, but that doesn't mean we expect to expend 119 million and erode our reserves, but this is how you have to budget it. So when you look at this and you want to look at revenues and expenditures, you need to look at each column, and you can see where the total expenditures are 59.1 million for the general fund, and total revenues would be 56.1 plus 2.2 million in transfers. Again, remember we have certain things in this budget that I didn't put in my other numbers, which would be scholarships and certain roll forward. This budget does have a $967,000 deficit, but of that deficit, 800,000 of it is attributed to those roll forward funds that we don't anticipate being used, but they need to be projected in the budget. And finally, this is the way we can spend the 1.5 mil, the capital outlay funds that we receive, around 5.3 million. And these are categories that are in state statute that we can spend this money in this way, but it has to be in the ad for us to be able to spend it. So the ad includes the maintenance, renovation, repair, purchase of 5 school buses, and some various other items that we can use this money for. And it also has charter school capital outlay language, because this year we don't anticipate giving any of the 1.5 mil to the charters, but after debt service is satisfied and after Chiefland Middle High School is paid off, we anticipate we will. And we have to put how they'll spend their money in our ad. It has to be published for them. So that language remains. Does anybody have any questions before you approve the ads?
Just, this is crazy, but, why are we doing it in Gainesville this year?
Because of the way the dates fell. Because the ad would have had to have been approved in our local paper on Friday. Friday was, I believe, the 19th. I didn't get the RLE till the day before on the 18th, so we would have had to have set that board meeting up on the 19th on a Friday, and then I ran the risk of not having the number for you when I came to you. So about every 3 to 4 years, we have to use the Gainesville sign.
Thank you.
I mean, it's not, didn't we talk about the price before? I mean, it's
It's not too bad. It's
Too bad.
more. It's
It's more.
definitely more. It's
Right,
a couple thousand.
right.
Compared to a couple hundred, but it is only every 3. The last time I did it, I'd done it in 2017 and 2020 were the last 2 times I did that. And with the superintendent, we reviewed taking advantage of deregulation, and it's not feasible. We, at this time, to take advantage of deregulation and post the budget online because it will require us to ensure that 75% of our citizens had access to the internet in a way that would allow them to receive the material. We would have to email or mail them and mail each one of them and find out if they wanted to have the budget emailed or mailed to them annually. And then we would have to do that and incur that cost. So at this time, the superintendent had me move forward with keeping it.
Time and money. That's the best one.
Do you need these taken separately, or can they be taken as a whole?
As a whole.
I move to approve the advertisements as follows. Notice of proposed tax increase, notice of tax for school capital outlay, and the budget summary ad.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussions or questions about the budget? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes for your training ads.
Thank you.
Move on to 7.2, and that's Mrs. Ford.
Good evening to the board.
Good evening.
So nice to see you and the guests. Hello. My name is Jerry Ford, and I'm the coordinator of federal programs here at the district office. And I like to tease Kim that my money is more fun to talk about than hers is. So I always let her go first, just teasing. I too want to take just a second, and I know he's sick of it, but Morgan very well deserved. None of us could do what we do without him and his department. And as a person who just recently almost got struck by lightning and killed at this office, I would like to commend the entire MIS department for, seriously, y'all, 3 weeks ago, we had a horrible lightning strike that took out a tremendous amount of equipment, just stopped us in our tracks. Happened again yesterday.
Your hair is
Just
curlier.
Very dangerous. And we, because we are an internet-based everything, our work came to a screeching halt, and Morgan's leadership in his department, second to none, got us all up and running. We might have had some things plugged into places we shouldn't have, but we were up and we were running, so thanks, Morgan. We couldn't do it without you. I come to you tonight with not an exhaustive list of federal programs. I come to you tonight with 4 instructional federal programs for supplemental materials. And my purpose with you tonight is we would like to incorporate the board into our list of stakeholders for stakeholder input in our instructional programs in titles 1, 2, 4, and 5. So without going into too much detail, I provided you the summary report ahead of time. We're just going to kind of hit the high points, but I want to talk to you a little bit tonight about the proposed activities that we have planned this year for those 4 titles. At a very high overview, I know the first page you're like, good grief, she listed every instructional program there is. But I think that as we go through this, you're going to recognize a tremendous amount of things that you see come before you all the time. But now maybe you'll have a little bit of a place and know where they're coming from and know where that funding is coming from. So we'll start with Title I, Part A, largest, the biggest, the most complex of them all. As you can see, Title I's projected allocation for this year is $2.6 million. It's a lot of money for little old Evie for supplemental instructional programs. And I want you to know that 2.3 million of that is discretionary dollars at the school, where the schools and the principals and the parents and the stakeholders at the school decide how they're gonna implement those funds. Now, do we have to give them a little guidance? Do we all use the same program for ELA intervention, iReady? Do we all in the elementary, ELA and math? Yes. So there are some district-wide set interventions that you'll see listed in here that are across all the schools. But by and large, principals, their staff, and stakeholders at the school, parents, if many of you have served on SAC committees and you've seen these budgets come before you. So 2.3 million decided at the school. Here we go, we'll go fast. Morgan, I'll hit the blue and stop me if you want to talk about something. Instructional curriculum, you'll recognize a tremendous amount of these programs. Classroom instructional materials and supplies, just straight money that teachers get to decide, I want $100 worth of whatever I want in my classroom. Printer ink, a printer, whatever they decide that they want to use their instructional dollars on. The Title I Parent Teacher Student Resource Lab listed here at the district. Here at the district, I don't know as parents if you're aware of it, if you've ever used it. It is open to every student, every teacher, every employee, every parent in Levy County. They can make copies, they can get construction paper, we have poster board, we do a tremendous amount of teacher copies, which takes and relieves a little bit of a burden off those school budgets with running their copy machines. It is staffed with a full-time employee that makes all kinds of products that can be used for kids at home. A lot of professional learning, lots and lots of professional learning. Lots of technology in the classroom. Most of you have seen the new line boards that are in almost every classroom now, the smart boards. Those were almost all completely funded through school-based Title I dollars. School instructional salaries. We'll kind of summarize this at the bottom, and I think you'll see what an impact this has. The Title I used to pay for enrichment teachers, intervention teachers, paraprofessionals, salaries for math and reading coaches. We have some of those in the room. Ms. Campbell was with us for a long time, serving in our reading coach role. Graduation coaches. They may not pay the full salary. Sometimes it takes lots of pots of money to pay all of these employees, but they are all proportionately paid out of Title I. Lots of parent and family engagement in all kinds of ways. Parent nights, take home nights. A lot of your high schools are now doing your boot camps, ACT boot camps, freshman night, freshman invasion, whatever your particular school calls it. 99% of the time, the teachers are being paid and the supplies and materials are being paid from that school's Title I dollars, and that's how those nights come out. MTSS, which is where we track our students and what level of intervention they might need. We do buy we do lots with MTSS. I won't camp out on that. College and career readiness. That can be in a lot of ways. You're most familiar with seeing AVID. The AVID program, you may say to me as we flip through the next two or three, hey, I just saw that in Title I. Hey, I just saw that in Title IV. One of the things that we're tasked to do in federal is to collaborate all of our federal funds so that this federal project is not off on a tangent by itself, but we are collaborating all these funds with a common goal. You obviously know that AVID is a common goal in Levy County. Each Title I school pays their own membership fee to AVID from these funds, and lots and lots of Summer Institute, classroom tutors, and again, we're going to see this again in Title II. We're going to see it again in Title IV and Title V. Lots of middle school family nights, junior journey family nights. We pay for a portion of homeless and foster needs. We have students who are experiencing experiencing homelessness. Title I has a piece at the table along with Title IX to help meet the needs, transportation or clothes or cap and gown or simply just maybe a backpack. And then at the bottom you'll see district administration cost. Part of my salary comes from there, part of one of our secretaries comes from there, the support staff that staffs the Title I lab. So that's kind of Title I at a really fast pace. I could spend days and days and days and hours talking Title I with you because I love it. And I love what it does for our students. Why do we get Title I in Levy County? Because it is for poor students. It is to level the playing field in a poor county so that every student has an opportunity for the same level of education. That is really, in a nutshell, what Title I is for. We literally are funded based on economically disadvantaged students.
Are we at still like 68%?
We
Or
are,
higher
we
than
are.
that?
District-wide, I think
60?
it's at 67.7 for 24-25.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, with some variance, within the schools. Our highest level poverty is in the 90s, and it's actually one of the charter schools. And then our lowest is in the 50s. Okie dokie, quickly moving along. Title II, supporting effective instruction, $326,000 for lots of professional learning. That's what Title II is for. But inside of Title II, we also assist in paying those reading coach salaries because that is a reading coach's primary job, is to coach in the school, to help those teachers become better content area teachers and to support in a coaching type role. So we pull a piece of their salary straight from the Supporting Effective Instruction and Professional Learning Grant. We are funding the STEM coordinator. That is a position that we assumed after ART ended. It is not a brand new position to Levy County. We had that position 10 or 15 years ago, if my memory serves me right. It was established, when Ms. Kathy Marks was here, Ms. Barb Rivers, going back lots and lots of years. The position focuses on just that, STEM, science and math, engineering, mathematics. The position was kind of dormant for a few years. We brought it back during ESSER, and we have certainly seen the benefit from having that support in the classroom and to the schools on the STEM side. So Title II, 4 and 5 assumed that salary cost when ART is closing down this year. Yeah, I think 10% is coming from the district, but the rest of it is us. APSI, Advanced Placement, this is just simply teacher professional learning support, teachers who teach AP classes. Again, you'll see that AVID piece. This is the professional learning where our teachers and our principals and our staff are constantly receiving. We don't just do AVID. We are training our teachers and our staff and our principals constantly on different strands in AVID and how to implement AVID in the classroom and how to be better teachers. So a lot of emphasis put on professional learning there. And these are, one of my favorite on this page is Literacy Solutions. Not a new program, been around a long time, but what this is a subscription, an annual subscription for any teacher who needs their ESOL endorsement. It is completely paid for and free, on-demand professional learning that a teacher can work at their own pace. They can take the whole school year. They can do whatever they need, but they do not have to pay out of their pocket to have the professional learning coursework that they need to get their ESOL endorsement. So it's just a really awesome opportunity. Way back in the day, you have to take a course from a local university in order to obtain your ESOL endorsement or certification. Lots of pre-K professional learning. Newsella is a new reading strategy program. These are programs that we have in place that we don't want to just put it out there. We want our teachers to know how to utilize these programs in the classroom. So we go that extra step and bring in professional learning so that they feel really good and rock solid about the programs. Professional learning for new teachers. It's kind of it's training for iExcel and iReady. It's a new teacher cadre where they can meet in the evenings and come together with other new teachers and receive some extra support that's just for them. We allow them to attend a new teacher cadre that NEFAC does. Just anything we can do to support those new teachers because they are they just sometimes need those layers on top of everything else. And again, there's a little piece of my salary. Takes it, just kind of crosses, my salary is a cross cut across these four programs as the administration of the grants. Title IV, $204,000. One of my favorites. Title IV is a relatively new federal program. It's been around about 7 years. Student support and academic enrichment, and we get to do some fun things that we can't do with other grants. Again, you'll see that college and career AVID piece there. This piece of AVID is used for college visits. We hire charter buses and the yellow buses if they're available, but that's not very often. We oftentimes don't have enough bus drivers, and so we'll do charter buses. But we set goals within this so that students can go to college fairs, college visits, we can bring guest speakers in, and those are just things that normally would not be allowable under most programs. Then we have a whole initiative for STEAM. Again, you'll see that piece of the STEAM coordinator's salary. The second bullet, STEAM materials and equipment, it's a pretty fun line item. It's generally $30,000 to $40,000 that we give to every school, again, school discretion, on buying things to support in the classroom, to support science and math, and then one of the fine arts. This past year, the fine art was music. No, it was art. It was art. We picked one each year. I'm looking at mine. This year, it's going to be music. So, okay, you need band instruments at Williston High School for students who can't afford a band instrument. Principal could choose to allow the band director to actually buy band instruments for this. That's just one example. Or you want to buy a centrifuge for one of your science labs. Nobody ever has money for stuff like that. You can't do that out of your schoolhouse budget. But we give the schools at their discretion around $30,000 to $40,000 to hit those high needs. It's pretty fun. Gizmo, grade 6 through 8 is just the new science and math program. You're going to see some of the reflex math and math fluency for grades K to 6. These are all really fun, kind of above and beyond supplemental, most of them computer programs, to just help students in those grades meet standards above and beyond their core curriculum. Generation Genius, math and science. Building today's youth. This one you'll be familiar with. This is a contract that we've had with the Levy County Prevention Coalition for going on year 6, where Mr. Lewis helps us put mentors in the school, in the elementary. We have a focus on K to 5, where we're not counseling. These are not official counselors. These are not guidance. They are simply mentors who are at principal's discretion. We look for early warning signs. We look for attendance might be a problem. Attendance is what we base a lot of it on. Discipline, course failure. We look for those signs of where that student could be a potential dropout, and we match them up with a mentor. It could be somebody who comes and pulls that student out of class, and the student thinks they're playing ball. They may toss a football around, but they're actually just getting that one-on-one, that, hey, Mr. Aspel's going to come see me today. I think I'll go to school. I think I'll show up. I think somebody cares that I'm at school today. And we measure the success of this by a lot of times watching those discipline and those attendance. So we hope to be contracting with Mr. Lewis again this year to provide these services countywide. One last, Title V, rural and low income, $196,000. We received this because we are rural and low income. It is simply given only to districts who are rural districts, who have a high poverty level. And again, you'll see a lot of these repeat activities. You'll see supplemental programs in math, supplemental programs in reading, and there's that college and career piece again with AVID. With this portion of commitment to AVID, we pay for a lot of tutors, a lot of AVID tutors to go into the classroom and work directly with students after they've been through a rigorous tutoring training. Lots of professional development and just continued support for what you'll see in those other federal one of my favorite, professional learning. This is the pot of money that's set aside for all of our teachers who are on the alt-cert. They may be an EPI program, they may be a PLCP, but if you have any experience with coming in on a temporary certificate and you're trying to move over to that professional certificate and you're in the PLCP program, which is stretched out a little longer than normal, but the expenses of taking a subject area exam, of taking your GK, of getting a study guide, the expenses that are put on our teachers, just trying to take it from that temporary to that professional can sometimes be a deal breaker. And so with this, if they take and pass those tests, we just give them the money right back. And we're able
100%.
to give it back to them out of here. This is going into our third year. At one time, and I don't want to misquote, Kaylee's in the room, but at one time, we were at 1/3 of our teachers were alt-cert. 1/3. It's a lot of our population, and it's a financial strain for them to, $150 here for this subject area test. Oh, I've got to take the GK, all of these things out of pocket. So, really, really love this piece. It was the brainchild of personnel about 3 years ago, and I said, I don't know if we can pay for this out of federal, but we'll try it. And it works, and it's good, and DOE likes it too. We have a contract this year for some really great continued professional learning that is specifically for our principals and our school leadership. It's through Huron Studer. It's a continuation of something that we started with a different federal grant this year. And it is really geared, and I don't want to misspeak about this one, James, the expert on this contract, but it is just simply geared to come in and give our principals some true, continued professional learning, not a one and out, not go to a 2-day conference, not get a 1-day training, but to have throughout the school year, continued professional learning on being a good leader, on effective communication, and just how to be a really good leader. And it is going to be continued all year. It's a complex contract with lots of in the classroom, and then it'll filter down, and I don't think I'm misspeaking, Jamie, but it filters down eventually to all staff. First principals, then school leadership, then staff. So we're really excited for that support for our principals. And then just a couple of other, you've all heard of UFly, which is the University of Florida Literacy Institute. We're in third year of providing that for our teachers as well. And then there's that dreaded line that has a part of my salary. So, one more? Is there one more page, Morgan? Wrap it all up. Thanks for bearing with us through that. I wanted to give you a summary of what the $3.3 million just at a glance. School-based salaries, $1.4 million of that goes towards school-based salaries of reading coaches, of math coaches, intervention teachers, paras, and graduation coaches. District-based salaries, it contributes $208,000. And then the big highlights after that, will it list all the district salaries? I'll let you read that. $538,000 for our staff to have professional learning, $145,000 for parent family engagement, $30,000 to run the lab here at the district, $269,000 for college and career readiness, $520,000 for math, ELA, science, and social studies intervention programs, and then $119,000 for technology in the classroom. Just kind of a little overview with the real number stuck beside it. Types of stakeholder input. We talk about these initiatives. We talk about developing the programs, developing the grant applications. Generally, we start those conversations in February to March. If you would allow me, I wanted to bring it to you now, but if you would allow me the privilege of coming back to you in February or March at the very beginning of this process and allow you to weigh in at that time. Truthfully, these programs they're developed at this point. We've put in the work with the other stakeholders, but we would like the board to be involved and be counted amongst that stakeholder input. But currently, we talk to our principals and administrator meetings. We have district instructional meetings, and I won't call them out, but every department at the district is represented. well, I say, every instructional department is present. You have a district advisory council where we invite every single family in this district to a meeting here. And I would, it's not very well attended. It's a struggle across, it's a barrier to every single organization. I know the schools feel it. At the next one, the school advisory councils. Usually your first meeting of the year, we're all gung-ho. And then as the year wears on, sports and people are tired and then they work. So because of that, we do an annual parent survey where we ask, what are some of the barriers of why you can't be or having a struggle being involved in an advisory council? We get a lot of just simply work. People are just, either they're at work or they're just tired and they just don't want to come out, or their kids are playing sports. So we do an annual teacher survey where we talk to all of our teachers about these programs, and then we do an annual parent survey where we not only ask for barriers, but we ask their input. And so we would like to add the board to our list of stakeholders, if you so shall please.
Is there a way you could do the meeting virtual?
Huh?
Is there anything against having a virtual
So
site? I'm
it
just curious.
can't be completely virtual. It has to be in person, but you could have a virtual option.
Element to it, yes.
What we've run into, and the equipment's a whole lot better in here than it used to be. What we ran into in the past is where the federal government says that virtual, we bent the rules during COVID. But I've actually talked to 2 schools this week who asked to add the virtual option to their school SAC. As long as, here's what the government says, as long as it is a truly two-way meeting. In other words, that parent just piping in and listening is not considered meaningful two-way involvement. So you have to be in a setup where the parent can see the room, talk, interject, make comments, and really come into the room. If you can pull that off, yes.
Could we take it to them?
Like,
Is there anything that says the district, like the DAC meeting, could
Uh-huh.
go to Chiefland, could go to Bronson
absolutely.
one night and travel
Absolutely can do that.
to them?
Yes, my only hesitancy in that would be, and it's not a true hesitancy, it would be that we would kind of want to do the same meeting and do it 3 times. Because we all know that if the district advisory council meeting is in Chiefland and I live in Williston, I'm most likely not going to go. That's just kind of how parents see it. Oh, that's for Chief, and so I would say that would work, absolutely, if we had just decided that we may do a repeat meeting, maybe the same
Just curious if
content
there was
and
a law
offer it
against
in the communities, absolutely. Or another thing that's crossed my mind is, could the DAC join a SAC? One SAC a year? Could we make ourselves available to each of the schools and say, hey, for one of your SAC meetings, could the DAC join in and we just become a part of that meeting and get a little more face-to-face time?
That's a nice idea.
Yeah, and then we're not asking the parents to come to 2 meetings, because it's gonna be the same parents. It's gonna be the same parents that go to both of those meetings, most likely, most likely. Any other thoughts, or please roll on? Okay, thanks for being stakeholders.
Do we have to take a vote to be
No,
added
ma'am,
to
you're
that?
not really passing anything, we're not
Great.
asking, we are literally, coming to you in the development of these applications and process, and really treasuring your input. And so if you want to talk more, my office door is open, come sit down with me, I can take you to, answer any other questions or go to a different level with any of these initiatives.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Mrs.
Thanks.
Ford.
Thank you. Great job, Jerry.
And we'll jump right over to 8, Mr. Lott.
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
I just want to also say that the Impact Award for Mr. Bennett is very well deserved. I've had the privilege of having some excellent assistant principals over the years when I was principal at Williston and Bronson, and certainly Mr. Bennett was one of the best, if not the best. And has great attention to detail and very dependable and reliable. And he left us briefly and went to Gilchrist, and I was thrilled to be able to help recruit him back to us at the time because of our relationship with Bronson. So he's just done a great job at MIS, and can't say enough good things about him. So we're very blessed. We have quite a list here. As you know, the legislature has been very busy. I just want to remind you how these things come about. NEFAC gives us the model policies. We look them over. I farm them out to different people who have in their precise area. They go through some of these things that we end up actually putting into our pupil progression plan, which Ms. Hamlin will go over later. Sometimes it could be in the instructional materials handbook, but all those things are board approved, so we cover our bases many times that way. Just because some of these things will change every year if we then find something that is more malleable. So sometimes we do that, but in this particular list, and the way this thing is set up this year, with board docs, just so you know, if it's highlighted in green, then that is new language. And if it's deleted, then it'll be a strike through. So that's a little different than our traditional format where all new language is in red. But just so you know. So we will we'll go through them and we'll introduce them. And again, if you have any questions as we go through, please interrupt. And then we'll ask you to allow us to advertise, and then we'll come back next meeting and we'll review them one more time, and then the third meeting we'll ask for approval. So we'll start with 2.08, copy of collective bargaining agreements. And basically that came about because of Senate Bill 7002, part of that deregulation of public schools legislation that came out. And basically all it does is outline areas that are exempt from collective bargaining. So all that was added to the original board policy. 3.06, safe and secure schools. As you know, in the last few years, this safe schools have been a heavily impacted area through new legislation, and this year is no different. And so basically, I think you've gotten some information earlier from Mr. Gore. This outlines safe school specialist reporting requirements and how he has to make regular reports to the board, and you'll be getting those throughout the year from Mr. Gore. And that's the legislation that created those requirements. 4.041, dropout prevention program. This is something that we had previously always used the pupil progression plan to comply with, but this year we thought, well, there's some additional language, and we'll just bring it to the board for a new policy, so it'll actually go from just being in the pupil progression plan to board policy. And the main part there is alternative notice being possible. .261, artificial intelligence and acceptable use. This is some new policy, new board rules actually that came about, and we had previously addressed AI through acceptable use agreements and other board policies, but as we all have heard, and if we're informed, we know AI is becoming a bigger and bigger part of our world, and it's not going to go away. And so we thought, well, we need to bring this to the board and create a board policy on AI. And it has some, some things in here regarding funding, required software, but we're now definitely in the AI age. 4.43, curriculum and instruction, under that chapter, operation of unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. Again, new technology, so we have to have a board policy. So there's some statutory language in House Bill 1473 and 330.41 about unmanned aircraft systems. I think that acts as a federal policy, Unmanned Aircraft Systems Act. And bottom line is, drones are not permitted on campus unless the permission is granted from the principal or the superintendent. That's the short version. 5.08, student control, Florida Statute 1006.09, basically gives the duties of the school principal relating to student discipline and school safety, so there's some changes there. And also there was a change on notification on suspension, which came about because of that legislation. And that one they revamped pretty well. They took out some old statutory numbers, 1003.31. They've quite a few strikeouts and then quite a few additions as far as language.
So that part B, Mr. Lott, no student shall be suspended for unexcused absences, tardiness, they added that in there?
Actually,
Or
that's actually been in effect for quite a while. They added it into this policy, and previously, we actually took care of that part of it in our student code of conduct, which is also board approved, so we had taken that before. So they've added it to their original, but that has been a law, a part of statutory requirement for many years. .15, administration of medication. Hadn't been that long, 22, since we brought some changes in regard to medication. Two, I believe that one was in regard to the ability of children to have headache medicine and not have to go to the clinic. This particular change involves Narcan. I hate to say that we're in the day and age where we have to have a policy on Narcan, but we're there. And we had some scares this year. So Narcan and how it can be used and so forth is outlined in this policy. We will have Narcan that will be available via the health department this year. So hopefully we never have to use it. But that's the day and age that we are in.
Mr. Lott, will we have somebody at each school that knows how to administer that?
Principals and APs that were trained on it last week.
Okay, great.
Corporal punishment, 5.26. This is part of a requirement to review this policy every 3 years, and this is the third year. It was reviewed last in 21, so 24. We're reviewing the policy on corporal punishment. There's also a requirement, well, this is based on statute 1002.20, that Florida statute. There's also a requirement, and the reason we bring it forth is that we have to allow any public comments. So if anyone here would like to make public comments in regard to corporal punishment, please do so when we reach that section within our board agenda. Uh, 5.39, seclusion and restraint of students with disabilities in public school. This is statute 1003.573, and it better clarifies the prohibitions regarding seclusion. A very minor change, but fairly significant actually. Board policy 6.04 deals with the certification of administrative, instructional, and non-degree vocational personnel. This was a change in statute from 1012.56 and 1012.57, and basically gives some certification changes and requirements, and basically went from 3 years to 5 years. So that was a break for us, that came out of new legislation. We were able to extend that, and I know that many times teachers, that temporary certification runs out, they haven't met all the requirements to get a permanent certification. This will allow us 2 additional years for them to comply, and so we don't lose them. We can't afford to lose them. So that was helpful. 6.112 employee discipline policy. This actually was pulled from several statutes, but this became an emphasis mainly because of House Bill 1473 and the requirement to keep doors locked, and because we have to keep doors locked if a teacher or other staff member does not comply with that requirement, then there has to be employee discipline, some progressive discipline, and all that is outlined in this particular board policy. .01, safety. Again, House Bill 1473, school safety, reporting safety violations. Who has to report those? How do you have to report those? Who are they reported to? Those kind of procedures are outlined in this board policy. And also, again, there's some progressive discipline that is required to be in our policies. 8.18, professional services. There's some new laws, 255.103, 1001.43. And this is also a win for us in that it increases the continuing contracts amount up to 7.5 million. So as we know, inflation affects everyone. It affects us as well. And by expanding some of those upper limits, certainly allows us to get things done in a better manner. All right, use of facilities, 11.03. This is a change in statute. It was the Boy Scouts of America Equal Access Act was part of this. It adds shared use language, and also SRO requirements if students are present at these events where our facilities are used. So basically, just add some clarifying shared use agreement language. I believe that is all for me. Does anyone have any questions or anything for me at this time?
I really don't like the green color. I like the red.
We do not. I'll tell you.
It's hard to
It's hard to
Ms.
read.
Hogan and
It's hard to read.
I told her, I said, can we change all that to red? And bless her heart, she was on the phone with like 3 different people at Board Docs trying to get it all changed to red. And they were not able to do it. They said that was the Board Doc default and they couldn't change it. So we tried our best, I promise you.
Yeah, even yellow.
I've never been able to see the red, so.
I would change it.
And I said, it's just the red stuff. I was there going, yeah, okay, whatever.
Aaron's colorblind.
I
He
had to
doesn't
read
care.
the whole thing. Now I can see what we're talking about.
So
If you blow it up.
I would ask permission to advertise these policies.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion or question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes to advertise. All right, going down my list. We did all that. Let me go here. Mrs. Hope.
Page 5.
Julia.
I have to add something for my group too.
9.1.
I just want to tell Morgan that you are appreciated.
Too many pages.
Actually, if my team was here, they would give him an award in patience. In the 8 years, he has brought my team from working from paper to working on a computer. So very proud of him. He's done an awesome job helping my team succeed. Thank you. I'm here to talk about the wellness policy. We currently have a policy and a plan, and each year I have to bring to you to advertise and make changes to both of them. So it was recommended by the Florida Department of Agriculture, that we bring them together and use their template to create a policy that we could put into action. With that, I used the template and I updated the wording, laws, codes, regulations, everything that the Department of Agriculture recommended, and I am now requesting permission to advertise the new policy.
So moved.
A motion and a second.
Thank you.
Any changes that were huge in your eyes?
No, ma'am.
Just taking the
Basically
template.
took the plan and put it into the
Template.
policy.
I'm not gonna just read all that to us.
If you'd like me. It's many, many pages.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes to action.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the next thing on the agenda there is a price increase, which nobody likes to hear about. But after receiving a formula, again provided by the Florida Department of Agriculture, it is required by the USDA. I tabulated the prices using the formula that they gave me, and it did come up to $4.86. So what I suggest is just to put it to $5, so I don't have to take nickels and dimes and give them change each time they come through. That also goes to the breakfast price. It is a bit of a up increase from last year. We were at $4 and we're going to $5. And that's basically because last year I was not using the formula, so they got a really good.
And then the Thanksgiving meals.
And then Thanksgiving meals, asking to raise those, we were charging less for holiday. We actually did a fish fry one time. We've done an Italian buffet, and then also Thanksgiving. So there's not a lot of them, but for the holiday meal, to raise it from the $6 up to the $7 to help cover the cost of the increase in food. Because y'all get a lot of food on that.
That's a lot.
I make the motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes for the food increase.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. We'll move to Mrs. Lewis. 10.1.
So much presentation tonight. I was sitting back there thinking that, like my old cheerleader self, wished that I could pull pieces of each uniform from each community, because I'm very excited to share with you tonight our end of year review. I set it up a little bit differently than you might have remembered before, so I tried to shorten it. You're welcome. But so starting off, if we all remember that K2 is not in accountability yet. We say that because we foresee the future probably of them being included. There's pros and cons to that. But what I have here and linked that you could visit later are some goal sheets that we have created for this coming school year in reflection of learning gains being added back into the school grading calculation formula. And so what our goal for not just K2, but I've linked it here actually for each grade band. We want every kid, every parent, every teacher to understand what making a learning gain is for that particular student. So it's different by grade level, and it's different for each kid depending on where they ended last year. So our push this year is everybody understanding that, using the chart. And you can see some information there on the side. That's what a K3 learning gain, how it would be calculated. So that's just kind of like a preview for this year in reflection of what some things we're going to see. So you can click. I wanted to revisit this slide that I presented last year because some of the data incorporates this. What made me a little bit sad is if you've followed our Facebook page, I've been very excited to share the data pieces that you will see later on. But with K2, I wasn't able to shout from the rooftops about things because it involved this page right here. So as you know, in October, the state board approved the change in the scale scores. And for grades 3 and up, because they are school accountability, they made adjustments to all kids grades 3 and up to their scale scores from PM3 of the previous year. They did not do that for K2. So we had to make some adjustments and some averages based on what the change in the scales did for K2 as a whole, like for what it did to the state, and we applied that to Levy County. So to try to explain that to a person through a Facebook post or a shout out would be too confusing. I'm going to explain it to you here tonight, but I just wanted to say that our K2 has done an excellent job too, but we just haven't been able to celebrate it in the same way. So this chart basically showed by grade level in ELA at the top, math at the bottom. You can look at that fourth column over. Once the new scale scores were applied, that is the change in the percent of proficiency by grade level. So kindergarten, once the new scale scores were applied, 11% lower number of kids would have met level 3 or above. And you can see where K2 was hit the hardest. Kindergarten, first, second, 11, 9, and 9%. Jumping down to math, they were hit kindergarten 15% less kids in the state made level 3 or above, 25% in first grade, and 14% in fourth grade. So Morgan, if you'll click to the next one. What you'll see here in yellow, that's an explanation of what everything I just said. Scale scores changed. They didn't apply that to K2, so we applied the state change to our Levy County scores. So when we ended last year in kindergarten early literacy, 64% of our kids in the old expectation made the mark. Once we applied, subtracted that 11% to the state, that really dropped us to 53. Then if you jump over to PM3 for this school year, kindergarten is at 58%. So I didn't want to compare 64 because that was a high, like a lower expectation. I wanted you to see the 53 because that's really where we ended, closer to where we ended compared to 58% of our kindergartners being on level this year. Jumping down to first grade, you'll see they take the STAR reading test at the end of the year. 49% is what our estimated previous year ended at, and so we were 1% lower this year at 48. Remembering too that we're also comparing apples to oranges because this is a different group of kids. And then second grade reading ended the previous year at 58%, apply that change to 49. This year we ended at 51%, so we were 2% higher in second grade. Back at one second, Morgan. SGP, that's an important column because that's how we were calculating kindergarten through second grade learning gains this year using the student growth percentile, which is calculated in Renaissance. It's very complicated to explain, but basically every kid goes into a bucket of how they've previously performed, and an expectation is set to them of how they are expected to grow for a typical year. And so they, on a percentile, so you know the 0 to 100 percentile, 72% of our kindergartners made a typical growth compared to themselves, and 49% in first grade, 66% in second grade. Now looking at math for K2, same thing applied in that fourth column where you'll see the state adjustment to it. So we ended last year saying that 62% of our kindergartners in math were proficient, but when that new scale score was applied, it dropped us to 47%. But if you can see the excitement from 47 to this school year, we ended at 59%, so we're up 12. First grade ended at, just say 56%. This year ended 59 for an improvement of 3% proficiency. And second grade from 61 to 64, so another 3% increase. And then you can see that SGP column, 80% of our kindergartners made a year's growth. 63% first grade and 60% in second grade math.
That student growth is just saying from that kindergartner last year to that kindergartner this year, you're not going from that kindergartner
It's
last
the
year to
kid.
first.
That's right. It's the kid.
It is the kid.
Did they make the amount of growth for themselves? If they're a low kid, low students are compared to low students, middle
Okay.
middle are compared to middle and high to high. So they're when I said a minute ago, they're put into buckets. They're put into buckets based on how they perform. And then so a low kid might be expected to grow a lot, where a high kid, if they're already high, their growth measures are less.
Okay.
But can we look at this, and this may just be silliness on my part. Like if we look at the PM3 in 2023 was 47%. Isn't that the PM3 in first grade this year at 59%?
If you want to follow cohorts, yes,
If I'm
sir.
following the kid.
You're following the group of kids, yes.
I'm,
So that group
So
of
to me,
kindergartners
that's
in
impressive.
23 was 47. That group of kids is now 59% proficient.
and if you look at the
First
the
graders to
56ers
second.
are now
Yep,
64.
56 to 64.
So that's more than an up 3, that's an up 8.
It is. The
Right.
state doesn't look at it that way. They look at the apples to oranges comparison. But yes,
But on
as
apples to
teachers
apples.
at
Well,
grade
apples to
levels,
apples,
we
yeah,
look
too.
at it as the kid to kid.
I
Yes.
want the
right.
kid.
Yes.
Okay. So that's good.
That's
Yeah.
good. It
That's
is.
good.
Looking at grades 3 through 5, same thing. We've got scale score chart links. We've got the goal sheet that I spoke about. The goal sheet looks the same for everybody, and we have given the expectation out to schools that every kid must have a goal sheet. It does not have to be this exact one, but it does have to incorporate the learning gains into it. So they can take the idea, make it fit their school theme, their classroom theme, whatever they like, but it has to be measuring learning gains using the correct scale for measurement. Here is your ELA, grades 3 through 5. So same thing, that those scale scores are applied 2% higher. Or it actually, this one added a point. So we've got, that should say 50 plus 1 is 51. I can add. I just apparently can't type. So 51%. So last year would be 50 compared to 50% this year. So that should be a -1. Fourth grade ELA, 46 to 42. So a drop of 4 points. And fifth grade, 44 to 52 was an increase of 8. Looking at math, you can see 59 to 59, third grade, 50 to 48, fourth grade, and 50 to 41 is a 9-point drop. We met with iReady today, so you know that for starting in January, we had Curriculum Associates join us with Stu Greenberg and Duke Chin. They were visiting our schools, and we had PL coming in to work with our teachers. And we saw great change coming. We did not see the results of it. We didn't see the full implementation of it, so then we didn't also see the full results of it. So we met with him today. Everybody got their feet wet with the things that need to be happening, where we're putting expectations in front of kids, especially starting in January. What are they going to need to, how are they going to need to be presented instruction in the classroom so that they can show off at the end of the school year on the final assessments? And so we have incorporated a lot of that into our curriculum maps, and so we feel very positive that those numbers in our grades 3 through 5 will show pluses next year. 3-5 science, I've included here, third and fourth grade as well. They don't have state assessments, but we do use the Levy interim assessments. So you can see third and fourth grade from one year to the next, 55 to 53, and then 48 to 41 for our fourth graders. But fifth grade does have the state assessment, and that's why we progress monitor third and fourth graders also in preparation for that fifth grade science assessment. And we did increase by 3% in our science proficiency. Moving into our secondary schools. You go next morning. There is a lot to celebrate here. So you see that scale applied over in PM3. Secondary did have an adjustment where that proficiency at the end of 2023 actually increased some with the scale score changes, but it didn't affect the change of our kids. So we've got 46 to 50% in sixth grade, an increase of 4%. Seventh grade ELA 40% to 47. 8th grade, 32 to 45, 13% increase. 9th grade, 32 to 41, and 10th grade, 30 to 37. So we're extremely proud of the things that were going on, and I kind of want to attribute that some to Heather and Darby visiting our schools, making plans in intensive intervention, some of the programs, all the $3.3 million that Ms. Jerry was talking about of supplemental things. I feel like these are some places that it's really showing up. And next, moving into math. This is just grade 6 through 8, and then our 2 math EOCs. These are the components that would factor into a school grade. So you see 6th grade math, 47 to 68. 7th grade, 49 to 57. 8th grade, 42 to 37. We did have a drop, and if you remember, we changed our math pathways, and you're going to see the increase in algebra, an increase of 26% of our kids being proficient. The 8th graders in that group, above that are the students that don't meet the mark to be considered to move into that algebra pathway. And so we see 8th grade tends to be a lower proficiency group, but being more careful of the selection of students that go into algebra have extremely increased our proficiency there. And then geometry, you'll see a 5% increase. Middle and high school science. 6th and 7th grade, again, these are just progress monitoring through the district assessments. So an increase of 11, an increase of 10. 8th grade has a state assessment. We increased proficiency by 4. And then biology, state assessment, increased by 1%. Social studies, these are both state assessments. Civics, look at the percents though, 66 to 67. That amount of proficiency is very something very much to be proud of. And then U.S. history from 57 to 61%. Writing, we know last year we had a field test, school year before last, there was a field test. This year our students actually received scores back. What you'll see here is just a summary of the scale, the rubric for writing is out of 12. And so the columns, the purple columns, are 6+. So those are the percent of kids that scored a level 6 or higher under by grade level. So you got 4th, 5th, all the way through 10th grade at the top. It's broken down by state, district, and schools on the left. And so under the 6, that's your percent that were level 6 or higher. Right next to it, this is how the state reported it. They've not set a proficiency number yet. But they have reported out level 6 and level 7 and above. So you can see the huge difference of the percent of kids that are showing level 6 or level 7 or above. So what we will be doing this year is actually shooting for the 7, really wanting to hit the mark of 8, level 8 or above. To me, what is a great gift is that we received every student's response, so we know exactly what the student typed and what score they got. So we can learn a lot from how our children are responding through typing, because this is not a handwritten assessment. And so we can learn from that. We can see what 7s, 8s, 9s, all the way through 12s look like, and then what those 6s look like, so that we can be able to meet the mark once the state finally sets what the mark is. Overall, so this is a group summary for the last 4 years. So since COVID, we're comparing what have we done in Levy by school grade component. So in ELA, you'll see 2021 we were at 44. The next year we moved to stayed 44%. 2023 took a dip to 43% of our students being proficient. And this year, these are projected numbers, so the state has released, and we've put it into all of our spreadsheets to calculate, but this year we are up to 46%. So from since COVID, we have increased by 2%. In math, you'll see those numbers across the way, increased by 7. Science, across, we have basically remained the same. We've got some plans in place for how we're approaching 5th grade science. And then our middle school science curriculum, we were making an adjustment to do comprehensive science in 6th, 7th, and 8th instead of separating the different ones out across 3 years, hoping to increase our science scores. And then social studies, we're already meeting, to me, what's a proud percent proficient, 65, and then we have ended this year at 64%. So for that's our one that we wish was in the positive. So tomorrow's a big day. The state board meets and determines how our schools will be graded, what the ranges are. So all year long, we've been shooting for an unknown target, and so we, all of the coloring that you saw, we've been still trying to work towards the mark that we had last, which was 62% is an A, and so everybody's been shooting for the 62%. Last week, we got to view what is going to be proposed tomorrow at the state board meeting. That would leave our elementary schools at the 62% is an A grade. But our combination schools, which is basically everybody else, so Yankeetown, Cedar Key, all of our secondary schools, and the district as well, will be graded on a different scale, which is slightly higher. So 64% actually would be what you would need to make the A mark, and 57 to make a B. So we await that approval tomorrow. We broke the news to everyone, and it actually only from our predicted scores, because they've not released learning gains. So we have hand calculated and used some tools to try to calculate our learning gains, but that one's still a question mark. We have, with our estimates, it only affected one school to not be where they had originally thought that they would end in school grade. And so these are the things you've seen. So if you've been following us on Facebook, this is just a celebration of our ELA, math, science, and social studies with our other subjects. Next one, industry certifications, just throwing out that blurb that Ms. Tanya Taylor shared with us. This was about our AP scores, especially that 100% pass rate in AP Spanish. And finally, our last one was our alternate assessment scores, which were not part of our data. So all of the numbers that we saw would have been higher had our alternate assessment scores been able to be used this year, but their assessment changed, so it's that year of waiting to incorporate them back in. So we expect that this will have a really good effect next year on our school grade. That's the last one. Okay.
That's the last one.
All right. Well, any questions on?
That looks like a lot of increases.
Yes.
Yes, we're very proud of that.
Yes.
Thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah, and we don't deny that there's, some areas of some minuses, but they are few, and so that helps the issues rise to the top so you can address them closer, and that's what we're all here for, is to support our schools and our teachers to be able to address those. So.
Thank you.
Thank you
All
for
right.
everything.
Thank you.
Ms. Lewis.
Dr. Hanlon?
Good evening.
Hello.
I'm bringing to you today the proposed changes for the comprehensive student progression plan. A lot of the changes that took place were cleaning up language here and there, as we've been seeing it. But there are some legislative changes, as Mr. Lott alluded to earlier, that needed to be added in every department who had a role in the pupil progression plan reviewed their area to make sure that the verbiage was correct, as well as adding anything else to the pupil progression plan. Some of those changes included the requirement to report a substantial reading deficiency to VPK through third grade third grade students. who are falling below that threshold of a substantial reading deficiency, notify the parents of the interventions that are taking place and how we're progress monitoring, as well as VBK through fourth grade students, substantial math deficiency. We added some verbiage in there. Some schools were having difficulty we have our standards-based report card in kindergarten, first and second, and when students come in from other districts, we have a difficult time transferring their grades. So if I come in with an SN or U from, say, Marion County, in reading, what does that look like on my standards-based report card if I don't have time as a teacher to reassess those skills that we're grading them on our standards-based report card. So we put some verbiage in there to help schools with that. The other people that also provided input in any changes to the plan were the school principals. So if there was some lack of clarity in any of the verbiage, we cleaned that up too, so that it was more concise and made sure that it was represented as they felt it needed to be, so that it was clear to the parents, students, and staff. Any additional required instruction has been added, which was social media this year. There is a new Florida Seal of Fine Arts that got added under the Florida Seal by Literacy, so you'll see that added as well. And then, as always, with our piggybacking on the report cards, if there's any changes to promotion retention requirements or the number of skills that we have on that report card when we go through that process with teachers, that is also updated in the progression plan here. So with all that is that was added, you saw that there were strike-throughs in there. Doesn't mean it got taken away, that maybe that verbiage didn't need to be in there anymore. And we wanted to clean that up with some by noting it in red. So this is a work in progress. We want to make sure that it's as clean and concise as possible. Does anybody have any questions about anything that was added specifically?
I like the red.
I can't
We
tell.
can read it. Red.
I can't tell, so I'm having to read the whole thing.
Oh, you can't see the red?
No, colorblind.
He's colorblind, yeah.
Red, green, colorblind. None of it's a benefit to me. All these pretty things that they do,
I'm sorry.
y'all put all that work in and just waste it on me.
Let me tell you, I wouldn't mind not having to change the color on all that font. I know CTE added a portion in there. She wanted to clarify some of the verbiage in there, as well as adding some more of that components with, I believe it was CDE that she was cleaning up as well. And you know, throughout the year, the last 2 years, we've been adjusting the verbiage with the state testing that's been in here as well. So again, some of it was led by legislation, and others was just led by needing to clean up some of that language. So I'm asking the board to accept the pupil progression plan changes as proposed.
I have one quick question.
Yes, please.
Did the state change anything from a level 3 to a level 2 in passing?
So it was all, what grade? So level 3, so third grade.
That's what I'm looking
Level,
at.
it's always been a level 2. So somehow that was in there as, it was listed as proficient. So I wanted to change that verbiage in there to be proficient as a level 2 or higher is promotion criteria. The other part that we want to be clear about is if a student comes in at the beginning of this school year and has been retained in third grade,
Okay.
when they take PM1 in third grade,
Mm-hmm.
if they get a level 2 or higher, they can have the school can have discussion with their parents that if they would like to promote them to fourth grade, they have that leeway to do so. So that is in statute. We added that language.
Because I remember just being a parent in that level, in the third grade. I
Mhm.
think it was a level 3, but then they looked at additional data that the teacher had taken separately,
Yeah, I can't remember.
like a notebook, booklet.
Right, the portfolio.
Portfolio.
So there are different caveats. You can do mid-year promotion where a student has to be able to test on at least the fourth grade skills that have been taught the year through the year. So that if there's anybody that has been retained and the parent is requesting a mid-year promotion, you look at a varying criteria to do so,
Okay.
which is spelled out here.
Okay.
And then for retention, you always have, for promotion to from third to fourth, you have the FAST. We have iReady as the second measurement tool that we give in May. And then after summer school, kids can take the iReady again. And I will tell you, I don't have the figures, which I could get to you next time, but I commend the schools. This year probably was the highest pass rate I've seen on iReady in summer school thus far, personally as administrator and being in the year district role. So we had a lot of kids that were able to be promoted for good cause based on their iReady scores from summer. And then of course we have good cause if a student hasn't been in the country less than 2 years. Can't promote them, can't retain them, and then you have IEPs and 504s, and then they can't be retained again in third grade if they've been retained once already. So there are some caveats there, so making sure that that was clear. I believe 10th grade is a level 3 though, so 2 for
They didn't
third,
drop
3
it.
for 10. Just makes it a little more challenging, but, any other questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes. Mrs. Wade, moving on to.
Good evening.
Hello.
I promise to be quick. It's been a long night. I have before you professional learning catalog changes. We contract with NEFAC to post our professional learning catalog, and this is how our administrators, instructional staff get points to renew their certificate. And so a lot of this is based on legislation. Some of this is based on needs within the district. And so I just need approval to add this to Lee County's professional learning catalog. Well, first of all, any questions? Sorry.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. You're welcome. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, ma'am. At this time, we need to select a value adjustment board member and an alternate to serve.
Well, how are we gonna do that? Because, we're gonna have different changes up here, and, it was Cameron and Tammy, and then, I just see that as an issue, because there is gonna be changes, and then we do in November, and we have new people. I mean, I don't really think that's really fair, and can we postpone that and do that?
Agreed.
The issue is I believe they have a meeting coming up in September, and that's why that they were looking for somebody to go ahead. But we can always revisit the issue after.
So our options are Cameron, Ashley, or Devin.
Cameron has no problem being the alternate because he is here in town, but I'd rather not be the number one guy.
So we need to decide the number one tonight, Chris, or we
Yes,
do?
yes, ma'am.
How often you meet?
On September, and then it depends.
Yes.
Not that I volunteer, or,
I nominate
Nominate.
Devin as the value adjustment
Value.
member and Cameron as the alternate. For value adjustment.
Okay, is there a motion for those nominations?
She,
So, second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any arguments from anyone? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
thank you very much.
Right now, we move to 14, which is public comments. Is there anyone among us that would like to come to the podium and make any public comments before we move to the next item on the agenda?
I don't want to come to the podium, but I'm just glad to see all those things and you did a great job. Oh, thank you. And I second that, but I really want to compliment you. I know how hard you work. Everybody works. And I know it takes the backbone for those +1 or +2, so congratulations. And +1 and +2 doesn't
to 15, which is approval of the board meeting minutes for June 25th.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes for the board meeting minutes of June 25th. Item 16 is the consent agenda. Start with Mrs. Brookins.
I did get a chance to discuss everything with Mr. Cowart and went over it, but I do have a few little comments. And I know maybe it's, Jerry mentioned the funding and the different sources and everything, but if we have the same people in the same position, such as Darby Allen, what's the cause of the change of funding? I mean, there's several, I just used her, but there's several people that changed.
Miss Darby was funded through ARP originally, and so she's coming off that. So that's why the funding sources is changing. So because of that ARP funding running out in September, so that's the reason. Ms. Brookins.
And so all the other different people, it's just different funding sources that are changing and running out.
Correct. So
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm sad to see that Dallas Locke is leaving. I think he's done a great job with FFA and Chiefland, and I'm wishing the best. I know he's got a great job, but he will be missed. And I'm real happy that Ben Hawkins is back. That'll be a wonderful asset to our county. I'm happy to see Ty Corbin, who, is homegrown and coming to Chiefland, and so that's wonderful. And then I saw on there Brittany Johns, and she was one of my kindergarten students, so I'm happy that she's coming. So those are things that are just really, really great. And I think on our contracts, down here, or at that part, yeah, on the agenda, the longevity supplement for teachers. Can you explain that, Mr. Cowart?
Sure. So each year, so you have two salary schedules. You have the grandfathered salary schedule, and then you have everybody that was hired after 2013. And so in that grandfathered schedule, through the years, with people that have been here with our district for a long time, teachers, part of negotiations have been longevity supplements to help them, especially whenever going back to the years where there used to be steps, which are no more. So,
Right.
so that was a part of the process to help reward some of those longer, loyal teachers that have been here for a long time, providing them longevity supplements.
Thank you. I'm glad that's explained. I'm glad that's in place. Thank you very much. And I think that's all that I have this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Whitehurst.
Superintendent answered all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehurst. Mrs. Clemency.
All my questions were answered. I too am glad to see Mr. Hawkins back in Libby County, so that's
Sure.
a great asset. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Asbury.
All my questions were previously answered.
My questions were answered as well, and I just will echo Mrs. Brookins that Mr. Locke will be missed, and I can't believe I've read Ty's name, because he graduated with my son, and that's kind of a aha moment when you realize how old you are. But that will be nice, and there's a lot of changes I see there for Cedar Key School, and I know everyone's very happy about their changes there too, so that's all I have.
I make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes. Finance, 17.1. Any questions for that?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes for the finance. And we will move on to board comments for 18. Mrs. Brookins, would you like to start?
I'll be happy to start with a question of why did we reverse the superintendent comments and then to board?
Well, I read it just like it is, so we'll switch it around.
And just in looking and realizing that this meeting is the board's agenda and the board meeting, so I moved those comments, so for you guys to be able to go first.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I like hearing your comments, and, we can comment on that sometime, but I'll be happy to go first. I think the summer has really gone by, and cannot believe that school is gonna start soon. and everybody's been getting ready and working hard, and it's obvious by all the contracts and the changes and the things that, you know, everybody's presented, so, I think that, it's coming upon us. And, Mr. Joe, tell me about, I see the advertisements we always want, you know, school bus drivers and things, how is that going?
Pretty good shape.
Did we get a good training this summer, and
We've had a few yet.
so we're all ready to go on our buses for the first day?
We
and-
are.
Okay, great. Well, that sounds wonderful. Ms. Kaylee, how about our schools with teachers and everything?
We are making very good progress.
Good.
Every day we're adding pupils.
Good. Well, thank you. I think that's wonderful. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehurst.
You know, like I say, we had thank you for all the presentations. I know it's kind of a lot feeding through a fire hose today, a little bit some of the information, but it was certainly, I said, like the games and, you know, all making sure we're in compliance with all the state regulations, and, you know, I know a lot of hard work goes into all these presentations. I know it's you know, a small bit of time, but, you know, there's hours and hours that go into it. So I just appreciate all the hard work. And like I say, I know we have textbooks in because actually was at Wilson Elementary helping sort textbooks out today, so for a little while. So I can say for anybody, I know we've been years before the textbooks not arrived in time. So, and I was actually at high school yesterday, saw the pallets there. So I can say at least in Wilson, there's textbooks on the ground. So anyway, there's a lot of hard work goes into sorting all that stuff out. So.
There's a funny story that I'll tell you sometime, Devin, about the Florida School Book Depository. So, and Jerry and Melissa and Morgan, so we're part of that process. So,
Yeah, no.
Ice cream, trunks, ones in the bus,
And Morgan, like I say, I know everybody bragged on him, but I appreciate it. I remember he actually was an intern under my mom many, many years ago. And so I remember her bragging on him before I even knew him. So, but she said he always talked very highly of him. So
We prayed you got one.
that's right. Yeah. So Morgan's known him for a long time. So appreciate all he does. And like I say, summer went by real quick. Like I say, winding down and getting ready to hit the school year. And I know everybody's excited and fresh faces and everything, and just ready to get going. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehurst. Mrs. Clemency.
I'm not ready to hit the new school year, but ready or not. Thank you to everybody. Thank you, Morgan. Like everyone else said, everything Mr. Whitehurst said. Super proud of our district, our teachers, everybody that does so much hard work. As of right now, I'm not going to make eye contact with Ms. Lewis because in case I'm the school that you were talking about. But I think Yankee Town's on track to be an A if the scale stays the same. So super proud of everybody there. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Clemency. Mr. Aspen.
Thank you. I am like everyone else. I appreciate all the hard work. I'm sorry I can't appreciate the colors. But everybody else appreciates it. It's just me being me, and I appreciate it. And sometimes I may come across critical of my thinking. It's not of anyone here. It's, you know, looking at it a different way. And I think sometimes we have to look at things a different way. So all that being said, when I was a kid growing up here in Union County, 3 guys were highly influential in their communities and in our county as a whole when it came to our school systems. And those people were Robert Philpott, Buddy Dees, and a guy by the name of Eli Beasley. Now, these guys were ag teachers. And they were, for lack of a better term, they were the big 3 ag teachers in the 70s and the 80s. And at that time, not that we're not now, because we still are, but Levy County went from being one of the ag programs to being the ag program in the state of Florida. And these 3 guys were crucial to it. All of them retired from Levy County, you know, moved on, were part of it. And even after they were gone, they were still points of influence. They were points of reference. They were willing to still help our kids. This past week, Mr. Beasley passed away. He was the last of those guys still alive. He was a valued asset to this school system. He was a valued asset to his community. And I'm sure his family greatly misses him. And I will tell you from a Cameron Asbel aspect, I've made no bones about. Y'all know where I am from. Y'all know who number 1 is as far as I'm concerned. But here is a story to tell you. If it's repeated anywhere, it's a lie, except this videotape, so everybody knows. When we used to call it an American Farmer degree. Now it's the American FFA degree. It used to,
I think kids got it easier now because everybody seems to be getting one, but in my day, it was hard to get that thing. It came my turn and I had applied for it. Well, we were transitioning ag teachers when I was applying for it. I didn't have an ag teacher still here. And so I was doing it on my own, and I got a call from Robert Philpott. He said, "Hey, boy, I understand you applying for the American Farmer." I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Well, I'd help you, but you can't tell anybody." I was like, "Well, I appreciate that." He said, "I'd give you an application, but I ain't got one. I've already talked to Beasley. Go see Beasley." So I went chiefly and got mine from Mr. Beasley. He helped me fill it out, and so did Mr. Philpott. So I have a great love for these men, although they do know where my allegiance always lied, and we all have established where the best FFA chapter always was, even though somebody thinks he's got the most celebrated or whatever. Anyway, I just wanted to say how much I appreciated Mr. Beasley at this time and how much he'll be greatly missed. I know we have some Chiefland students here that knew him, and he was a great guy and cool guy.
Your teacher, Lisa, my teacher too. Jerry's
teacher.
Oh, little Adam.
And he affected every one of you, didn't he? He was a great guy. I also want to say at the last meeting, I pointed out that there were people that should be here that were not here. And I'm glad to see we got a great turnout tonight for these important things. This is the important time of year. And, you know, and I'm thrilled that our candidates are here. That's awesome. Showing up in October, we're rolling in. Right now is when all the hard work is happening. And so I appreciate everyone being here. And I have talked too long, and I apologize. But thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Asbell. Congratulations to Mr. Morgan back there. I will tell a story 4 years ago when I first became a school board member, kind of going around to the departments, and one of which was Mr. Morgan's, and said, "Can you just tell me a little bit about what you do and make me a better school board member?" And I walked in there that day, and he had 2 books for me that he hand wrote notes in and put little Post-it stickers on to help me go through page to page. And I know he didn't have to do that. He could have sat down with me and told me to look at a computer screen and just went down. But to this day, I have those 2 books on my bookshelf and refer to them often. So I appreciate that. And that was above and beyond, to me. That's the story that I remember. I just want to give a shout out to Cedar Key School. They were selected to receive the Fred E. Roselle Award. Probably everybody in here knows what that is, but it's for an accomplishment of great sportsmanship. So congratulations to the admin there and athletic director. They're very happy, and they will get a plaque, and they will also get $2,500. That's good. The Shark Swim's coming up. I forgot to look up the date, but again, this year in Cedar Key, they are going to give all the proceeds to the PTO fund, and then also at the end of the year when they do the Young Authors Conference. So he gives every bit of that to Cedar Key School, and it helps them do their part of their programs into the PTO. And thank you everyone for your presentations and all the hard work. And there was a lot of data given tonight, and I love that side of it. I think that's just awesome. And that's all I have, Mr. Superintendent.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. I received this email this morning. So we have new teacher going on, so onboarding with teachers. And we've done this the last 2 years, and it's thanks to Miss Jerry, so helping kind of fund this. But it's run by a collection of our district instructional team. And I think this truly embodies what we have a district, where we are and where we're moving. It says, "Good morning, Mr. Cowart. I wanted to share with you the positive experience I've had with the onboarding process for Levy County Schools. As a former trainer of teachers with fiddlers, I can tell you that training adults is as much of a challenge as teaching children. But your team have made this experience a very positive one for me, and for the many of the new to the district teachers at Elevate New Teacher Days. Thank you for designing training sessions that were specifically designed to address the learning styles of adults. It has been a pleasure to gain the information about the Levy Way of Work and the AVID program. I was also very impressed with how your team made us feel so welcome, modeling exactly what you mean when you say we are more of a family in Levy County Schools. I look forward to having a long and productive teaching career in Levy County and having a positive impact on students in our district, thanks to your leadership. Have a wonderful school year. It's a direct reflection, but it's truly the people in the back of the room here, Tanya Taylor, Michelle Eastman, Jamie, Morgan, Marcy from ESE going in to present, Melissa presenting their data, Jerry being there. Education's a tough business, but we have people that care about our kids. We're not where we want to be, but it's sure a lot farther along because of the people in the back of the room. And I'm eternally grateful. Miss Kaylee heads this, our school's foundation, so brought in breakfast and snacks for them. We want to be a district that just brings people in and unifies them and moves our district forward. And we can only do that with the 5 of you board members and our district coming together. So just kudos to them, kudos to Morgan, because he's definitely, that email right there embodies what we want our district to be. So thank you, Madam Chair.
And thank you, Mr. Cowart, for caring too. We appreciate the care that you put into the students and the administration. Thank you.
I have a great team.
If there isn't any further business, meeting is adjourned.